So, fast forwarding a bit, Spielberg is now in the upper echelon of motion picture directors with huge cultural and financial hits like 1978's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1981's Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1941, this is a movie he did in between those. But anyway, Raiders was really awesome. But then he comes out and he gives us this little guy. This was actually a really brave decision by Spielberg. By the way, if you're if you're unsure of who that is, that's E.T., the extraterrestrial. One of the had the record for the top grossing movie of all time. Came out in 1982. This was actually a very brave decision by Spielberg. Why? Well, everybody thought that George Lucas had actually lost his mind when he cast this puppet for Yoda in 1980's The Empire Strikes Back. And this was a major role in the movie, and it was basically a puppet. And even though George was very unsure whether they could pull this off. He wasn't sure if everybody that even loved Star Wars would just laugh at this. Of course, it turned out very, very well for him. But his friend Steven went even further 2 years later by casting an animatronic, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, in the leading role of a motion picture. So the question was, could they get audiences to emotionally connect to this strange, relatively ugly alien creature? Well, a lot of it comes down to design, of course. The first good decision was in the design. E.T.'s face was inspired and sculpted by a man named Carlo Rambaldi, and there he is right there. And Carlo previously worked with Spielberg on designing the aliens for the finale of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. He actually won 2 Oscars in his lifetime. One for his work building the animatronic head for the creature in Alien, which we'll also talk about, and the other for his work here on E.T. Now, the eyes of the alien had to reflect what they called the frivolous, wizened, and sad eyes of Carl Sandburg, Ernest Hemingway, and Albert Einstein. That's what they were going for. And the eyes were just absolutely critical for, establishing and maintaining the emotional depth and believability of the character and the audiences. And originally they were just painted eyes that looked incredibly fake. And eventually they hired the experts at the Jewel Stein Eye Institute to create the huge glass eyes for the alien. So those are actually authentic artificial eyes that, we would make for someone else. Of course, they had to make them, quite a bit larger for the alien, but that's why they look so real. They went right to the source of who makes the best eyes. His scratchy child's voice was actually a local San Francisco woman named Pat Welsh. And here's Pat right there, who, at the age of 67 at the time, smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. So 2 packs of cigarettes a day, that's 14,600 cigarettes a year. For 50 years, okay? She actually was used again a year later for the voice of bounty hunter Bush in 1983's Return of the Jedi. So she's got quite a unique voice. E.T.'s voice was snippets of her, as well as a few other people, most notably actress Deborah Winger, but also raccoons, sea otters, and horses. Inside the alien of this guy, how did they actually get this guy to work? What's under the hood, so to speak? Well, E.T. was capable of 150 different movements, including many different facial expressions, neck, hand, and of course, finger movements. The actual E.T. animatronic seen here is actually similar to the controls of the cinematic version. It's like a duplicate model. But this one was created by the same people, but this one was actually used for British television commercials. But it's basically the same kind of setup. And as you could see, just a boatload of wires and controls and things to make this guy work. 4 ET heads were created for filming. One as the main animatronic, or we call a hero head, and the others for close-up facial expressions as well as costume. Two dwarfs, actually, Tamara Detraux and Pat Billion, as well as 12-year-old Matthew Demerit, who was born without legs, actually took turns wearing the costume. This is a drawing here of what 12-year-old Matthew Demerit, how he would be positioned in the suit. And as you can see, he was born without legs, and he learned to walk very well on his hands. So, they took turns wearing the suit depending on what scene was being filmed. Now, Demerit actually walked on his hands throughout his life and played all the scenes where E.T. was walking and awkwardly falling over when he was getting into the kitchen and getting drunk on beer and all kinds of stuff like that. Taking a look at the performance, we're going to take a look at the performance by Matthew in the E.T. suit and pay close attention to specifically when E.T. opens the refrigerator and starts eating things. Pay close attention to the dexterity of his fingers as he's exploring the groceries and opening up the beer can and stuff like that. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But take a look at E.T. in action.
As we get started with the dissection, remember that the things that you are writing down one thing that you should be looking for during the dissection is to locate the heart and notice that it is still beating. Okay, to once more emphasize the similarities of those things which we see in the similarities